Hey guys, welcome back to Movies with Michael. Ever since Tom Holland swung his way into the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Captain America Civil War, we have had 3 live-action Spider-Man on the silver screen. Each one of these actors brings something different about the character to their respective films, but today we are going to be talking about the original and my personal favorite of the 3, Tobey Maguire. This trilogy of Spider-Man films, released in 2002, 2004, and 2007, are all directed by Sam Raimi. The first film, Spider-Man, released in 2002, is maybe the best example, or one of the best examples, of a superhero origin story. The film doesn't spend too much time setting things up, it drops you right into it, it has just the amount of characters it needs, it doesn't have any useless characters, I don't believe, and it sets up Peter Parker as this loser, geeky nerd that gets powers, and he has to figure out when and how to use them. The sequel, Spider-Man II, released in 2004, continues this, but it really dives deep in on the psychological struggles that the superhero has to face with deciding which of his normal life to go into and which of his superhero life to go into. Many people consider Spider-Man II, that is the sequel, to be one of the best the comic book genre has to offer, and I would agree with them even though I don't consider it to be in my top 5. But now we get to Spider-Man 3, released in 2007. Yes, I know, alright. But I think this movie is still quite good, in that it wraps up and leaves an open-ended interpretation of Peter accepting his responsibility as Spider-Man and learning to live with the consequences of that life that he has chosen. So, I think the trilogy is very good, and I think everybody needs to watch it. Especially now. But what about the specifics on why I think Tobey Maguire is my favorite Spider-Man? Well, let's start with the fact that the way that he's written, and the way that he acts, you root for him. There was only one time, so far anyway, that I found myself rooting for Tom Holland as Spider-Man. But we'll get to that in the video where I talk about that. In Maguire's films, you are wanting for him to win. You want him to be with MJ. You want him to beat the bad guys. But you also want him to do the right thing, and you don't want him to mess up, which is why I think Spider-Man 3 really pulls on that. And Maguire is able to play this loser of a young man, Peter Parker, because that's who he is. He's a nerd, he's a geek. You wouldn't think you would want him to succeed in anything because he's just a loser. But the way that he acts in the role, and the way that he's written, makes you want to root for him, and that's why it's such a triumph when he does and when he succeeds. Let's talk about James Franco as Harry Osborn for a second, because he is, I think, more important to the trilogy than others might think. Because, he's present in all 3 films. In the first film, he's Peter's high school best friend, but he's jealous of Peter kind of because his dad likes Peter better than he does, because Harry's not really a smart guy and his dad is a leader of a cybertech corporation. So, there's still some tension there, there's some jealousy going on. But then in Spider-Man 2, that is going full force when Harry tries to kill Spider-Man, or I should say to use Peter to try and kill Spider-Man, and then he realizes that they're the same person. And then in Spider-Man 3, he's in full vendetta mode, being the new Goblin. But James Franco, as goofy as he is in these movies, is able to play that role to perfection. And I dare all of you to revisit these movies and watch them if you haven't watched them already, and really focus on his role, because I think you will have a newfound appreciation for it. And also, these movies do something that too few of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies do, in that there are a lot of scenes, a great many scenes, with many different characters, where our hero, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, is sitting down and talking with other people in his life, with the other characters. Whether that's with Aunt May, MJ, Harry, Norman, Otto, etc. And talking about whatever it is. It could be science, it could be a relationship, it could be a case, whatever. But in the MCU, the talking scenes mostly, I know that there are some good ones, but mostly they're used to introduce new elements that we will see later on in the action scenes. Or they're there to give exposition about a certain character. That's it. They're not there to talk about, like, ethics or what's right and wrong, mostly, mind you, there are some. But there's too few of those in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's quite unfortunate, since I've rewatched this trilogy recently, and I've really understood that, yeah, we definitely need more of those moments to slow down, for the roller coaster, to slow down, and really see what our characters are doing, why they're doing it, and what they're trying to do in their actions, instead of just jumping back and forth to different action scenes. This is a greatly summarized explanation, but I hope I got the point across that this is why I believe Tobey Maguire is the best of the live-action Spider-Man, and my personal favorite. With that, folks, that is all for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and be looking out for my next video in this series where I will be talking about my opinions on Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, and of course after that I'll be talking about my opinions on Tom Holland as Spider-Man, leading up to Spider-Man No Way Home, which I will do a quick thoughts on that. But that's all for now, folks, and I will see you all next time.